What's up YouTube? Today we're looking at new angel eyes to absolutely transform your 1 Series BMW. Check it out. So as you would have seen in that montage, we've opted for the 3/4 J style angel eyes. So what that means is they are cut off here instead of going completely up or completely rounded like the stock 1 Series angel eyes. These are provided by a company called Bavgruppe. They're based out of New York, but are meant to be the best in the business. I've seen the end result on a couple of other cars and they are absolutely amazing. I seriously cannot wait to install these, but conversely, they're not easy to install. Professionals charge thousands of dollars, so I'm gonna give it a go and hopefully help you save a bunch. In addition to the angel eyes, I've actually opted for these carbon LED eyelids. So if you can see there, they've got an LED that runs along. These are a bit more like the 1M style, but obviously with the carbon eyelid, so gives it a different, meaner look that will complement the blacked out style that I'm going to end up going for. Pre-warning, this is not going to be an easy install. All of the forums I've read about this on say it is absolutely hard, so make sure you have an entire free weekend or longer to give this a go. Okay, so the first step is going to be to remove the front bumper. If you haven't seen my previous video, check it out here. It covers all the steps in taking off the front bumper. Okay, so now we need to actually get the headlights out. My understanding is there is actual headlight, and then there is also a bracket of some sort that holds it all in. Our goal is to take out the headlight without taking the entire bracket out. So let's see how we go. First steps, I believe we need to take these screws out, these bolts. This one too, looks like hex, and probably 8mm, maybe 10. Okay, so figuring this out as we go, we've taken out this top bolt was 10mm. There was a hex just down in there. Then the other part is this little clip. I had to unclip that. Now there's this little, pull it out and just sort of wedge it around. There's another, I don't know if you can see that. There's another hex in there. So we'll just get that one done and then see how we go. And just like that, we've got the first headlight out. So that wasn't too bad. The other thing I forgot to mention, just make sure you unclip this power cord at the back. But yeah, not too bad. Let's do it on the other side now. Okay, so the easy part is now done. Now we get into the hard part, disassembling the headlights and putting the new parts in. Okay, so next step is actually taking apart the headlights. We're going to be stripping the headlights of the ballast, which is down the bottom here, and then we'll open them up and take out some of the more expensive headlights, bulbs and things like that on the inside, because to open these up, it is recommended you stick them in the oven, as weird as that sounds. So let's see how we go. Okay, next step, we're now at the oven. We need to preheat to 225 Fahrenheit, or I believe that's 110 Celsius, as well as clear out the entire oven so that there is no parts to actually melt the headlights. So it's a little difficult to see, but this is the setup I've gone. They recommend for you to put ceramic plates at the bottom of the oven to prevent contact. Let's see how this goes. Two key things I recommend is to pre-test fit your headlights in the oven to make sure that there is no contact points, as well as to remember not to have your headlights in the oven whilst you're heating up to temperature. They only go in once at temperature. You put them in for between 10 and 15 minutes. I'm going to be putting them in for 10 minutes and checking on them. Okay, so we've had success. So what I ended up doing was putting it in the oven for 10 minutes at first, taking it out, giving it a go, and the motion is get this flathead screwdriver in between the edge and wiggle the screwdriver back and forth along the glue line to try and separate it. And then every time it gets cold or cooler, put it back in the oven for another 5 to 7 minutes. Then eventually, once you've wiggled around the entire edge, you start trying to separate it by getting the edge and just levering it back. It's a pretty rough process. The light does get a little bit damaged in the meantime, but we've got new lenses coming, so that should hopefully fix things up. We will put it back in the oven now for maybe another 5-7 minutes, just so that we can scrape off the excess glue and straighten out the edge plastic. Now, next step is to disassemble the headlight itself. We need to take out all of these chrome parts and the old angel eyes so that we can strip and paint them. We're going to be blacking out this entire inside of the headlights, which will just give more contrast to the new angel eyes. So a couple of hex screws, it looks like, and probably a couple other little bits and pieces for the internal parts. So once you unscrew these 4 hex, there is a couple of clips. Just unclip these, I think it's top and bottom, and that will separate the 2 parts of this inner housing. Okay, so next step, we need to dechrome all of these parts. You got this outer piece and the inner piece per side. The forums recommend using oven cleaner, so we'll give this a go, see what happens. The stuff is quite poisonous, so make sure you wear protection and do it in a well-ventilated area. So pretty good end result. As you can see, the majority of the chrome has been removed, and that's across all of them. So I ended up doing a double coat, so sprayed it with the oven cleaner 4 minutes, rinsed it off, and then gave it another 4 minutes, rinse it off. These remaining little chrome bits, we'll use some 800 grit sandpaper and sand it away. So as mentioned, the remaining step is to sandpaper away the little tiny bits of chrome still on the lenses or the plastic frame. So we've got 800 grit sandpaper here. I'm just going to sand that away and just work through it. So I ended up sanding all visible surfaces on these plastic bits. Just better safe than sorry. Next step now is we need to paint them. I've got a paint and primer in satin black. So this one bonds to plastic, as you can see, satin black. So we're going to give a couple coats of this and then leave it for tonight and kick things off back tomorrow, start putting it together. Okay, in addition to the 2 sections that you originally saw me sand and paint, I ended up taking apart this sort of fake lens section, just pop it out and sanding and painting this, as well as the main housing sort of outline section. The key part, you just need to take this off to be able to sand and paint the inside of the indicator. Since we're going LED eyebrows, we don't need the indicator to work, as we're going to have an eyebrow indicator on top. Oh, and the other final part that we did paint as well was the angel eye lens. Probably don't have to paint this, but I just went for everything blacked out, so do it if you feel like it. So the next step is putting everything back together. Firstly, you get the old sort of angel eye housing, and you need to insert the rubber sections onto the old bulb housing and connect that in. Then you need to get this big double round section and essentially slot that in. So that should connect together basically like this. So all held together, there's little clips and things on the back. Just connect that together and you get a nice sort of blacked out housing. the next steps are once you start connecting it back to the light, so you just insert that over. This will clip in, so like so. Actually, before you do that, you need to put the fake lens back in, clip that in, and then that goes over the top like this. Okay, so with the fake lens clipped back in and this all connected, this is what it ends up looking like. The next step is to add the final outer protective case onto the top, like so. So just clip it in. There's a couple little hooks, basically, top and bottom, and that's the end result. Next, we put this back in using the same method as taking it out, using the 4 hex screws there and there. And then before we tighten them, we need to attach the angel eyes, so hold tight. Okay, so from here is where things get a little trickier. The next step is we need to attach the eyelid into the new lenses. Obviously you can skip this step if you have not opted for the actual eyelids. If you don't include eyelids, this build would be a lot easier, but the end result of the eyelids makes them all worth it. So next step is we need to get some basically really strong double-sided tape. I can't remember the brand, but I basically just got the strongest double-sided tape I could, black. And then we're going to stick it to the top of the lens here. I originally tried gluing it and that was an absolute disaster. Basically almost completely screwed up my first lens. You'll see when we finish it off, but definitely just tape the top because you'll need to readjust. Okay, so with this, it'll feel very strange. Just get a strip of double-sided tape all along the edge like this, and then you basically just got to jam it in there. It just doesn't fit perfectly. You've got to bend it all up in there. See, look, naturally, you need to basically bend it. Doesn't seem natural, but that's how you do it basically. So we want it to be about there. So double-sided tape can come off, which is, as I mentioned, where I failed with the glue earlier, but you will have to readjust because where this LED bar sits impacts your new LED angel eyes as well as the corner lens, this corner lens here. So just like that, stuck in to your lens. Okay, so next you need to reattach your clear lens to these blacked out housings, but we'll be taking these on and off and on and off and on and off several times. So reattached, looks pretty good. The next step is basically, because the housing comes in to, basically if we look like that, the eyebrow and the LED section passes onto the clear lens. So we need to cut out a section. As you can see, it's quite thick here. It's chunky as, so you need to cut out a full section like that basically, from the top of the clear lens with the Dremel, as well as some of the black section. So basically just test fit it, and then mark it up with the texture, and then get your Dremel to it. So as you can see up here, I've traced on the cutting line. Try and get it as accurate as you can. It's a little bit hard to measure perfectly, but do your best and just cut out, try and go smaller rather than larger, as you can always cut out more, you can't reattach it. So give it a Dremel, test fit, etc. Okay, if you have a look here, I've cut out the section required. You can see it's about third of the way, probably approximately a third of the way. I believe it was 1.5 centimeters long. And then I've also cut a little bit of the black surrounds out to fit through. So just measure it out, as I said, use the texter and then Dremel and Dremel further. Don't cut more out than you need. Try and cut out as little as possible and then just keep test fitting, test fitting, test fitting. Okay, and so this is the end result. We've got the blacked out housing, carbon fiber eyebrow, and LED eyebrow. Next, we will start to work on the LED angel eyes, and then eventually you'll connect them both together. So this is with it all positioned in. As you can notice, we haven't blacked out this in a casing of the lens. Couldn't find an easy way to get that disconnected, but I don't think it looks bad. It's all in theme. So as mentioned, we need to attach the angel eyes because the cords need to loop out the back, and with this outer casing on, it's quite difficult to feed it through. So what we'll do is we'll feed through the cords and then tighten the screws, keeping in mind that the thicker, the smaller angel eye goes on the inside and the bigger one on the outside. The other thing to note is if you have the eyebrow, you will need to insert that from this side as well. So this could be a bit of a repeat step, but for now we'll just focus on the angel eyes. So with the back off, you want to basically attach the angel eyes using electrical tape to position them roughly where they want to go. And you need to feed the wires through the top so that they fit through these tiny gaps, so that then you can seal this up. As I mentioned, we need to feed the eyebrow through a similar hole at the front here if you have an eyebrow on your build. So I'm just going to seal it up now to show the next steps, but I will end up reopening this up to feed the eyebrow through when we connect it all together. So with that all connected, this is roughly where we're starting to come together. So from there, obviously we need to fit the eyebrows, but it ends up looking something like that. Obviously nice and blacked out, angel eyes, eyebrow, looking pretty good. So the final part that we haven't really talked about so far is the harness. This tentacle looking type thing from Bavgruppe. Comes, depending on whether you get the eyebrow or not, it comes with a harness with 2 tentacle wires for the angel eyes. One goes into each. That was those 2 cords that we were pulling through the back there. And then if you do get the angel eye, comes with this second one, with a single one. They do nicely label everything to make it easier. And then it has these yellow wires which are to go attached to the indicators. So for this one, it's if you want to have a switchback functionality for your angel eyes. I'm going to opt out of that. I'm not interested in that since I have the eyebrows. So this one plugs into the indicators to have the eyebrows have switchback functionality, which is perfect. It also has a resistor so that you don't get any codes, I believe. And this plug goes into the OEM angel eye plug in the car. They also have one more tentacle as such. This one is if you want to go for demon eyes or anything like that, any extra parts. I think maybe RGB plugs in here too, I'm not sure. I opted out of that. From here, what you need to do is obviously connect the 2 angel eyes to the back, which we pulled through just before. Then you need to connect the OEM plug to the old angel eyes plug. We haven't attached the eyebrows yet, so we don't need to, but if you don't have the eyebrows, you can skip that step. Put it all in the back, close it up and test fit it on the car. It's really key to test fit it because you want to make sure that those angel eyes are perfectly straight. We've just mocked it up for now, but when we put everything together and fit it on the car, we will see how it's looking. So one of the key steps that we just mentioned was the indicators switchback functionality. As you can see here, it is a yellow wire with a little bit of metal at the end attached to the single tentacle resistor power bank type thing. We need to splice into the indicator and attach this cable to it. They recommend, can't remember the word, but welding it on, attaching it permanently. You can do that if you have those skills. Basically, this might be a little bit tricky to see, but in here, you can see the indicator. It's this front wire here that we need to pull this rubber back, strip the wire and wrap that silver bit around. Then you get that electrical tape again, seal it up, and that's your tap in to the indicators. So I'll do that now and show you the end result. It sounds quite difficult, but it was actually easier than we thought it would be. Okay, so this feels like the trickiest part, but it's not that bad. So if you can see there, that tiny little bit of copper poking out. So what we did is we just cut back the plastic on either side. Now from here, we will get this little wire from the eyebrow, and basically we're going to just wrap it around that, where you can see. So we're going to wrap it around, twist it, and attach it. So if you can see here, this is the end result. Just wrapped it around. I didn't mention before, but the way to get that little slit in the first place, I used a really sharp knife, like a sort of pocket knife type of situation. As I believe there's crimpers, but this is so delicate and tiny and no room to move in there that I found a knife to be easier. You may find an easier way to do it. So with everything stuck back together, this is the end result. You also obviously need to have all the wires coming from the back here. So you just pull it all through there, as I started doing it from the front, but normally you'd start from the back. Next, we just need to pull those cords through, attach everything to the harness, get the angel eye wire through and seal it up for a test fit before starting to glue everything. With the back wiring now complete and fitted, it's time to test fit on the car to figure out if we can glue these in position. For those that are installing the eyebrows, we're not done yet, but let's go test fit it so we can glue these and take it to the next steps. So as you can see behind me, looks pretty good, lines up pretty straight. So now we'll glue these a bit more permanently so then we can move on to the next steps. Okay, so now for one of the more important steps, we're going to be removing the tape and gluing it in place using an epoxy type glue. So you're gonna mix it up and then apply it within a couple of minutes. We've got a little mixing tray. I'm just gonna use pop sticks to mix it. Probably not the best, but it'll do. The key trick to this one I've found is, so I've made a little scratch where I want it to be set, so I can take off the tape and then I'll know where to replace it. So back to you soon. Okay, so the glue has now been applied. Probably not perfectly, but if you can see behind, sort of got it edged up against bits of gaps. It doesn't sort of seal perfectly, but hopefully this holds it well enough and we don't have to reopen these. But this glue is meant to hold up to 75 kilos worth of weight, so I feel like it should be strong enough and we should be good. So we'll let that set for a while, then come back to it in a little bit. Okay, so now sometime later, they recommend 16 hours later, the glue is now dried and set properly. It's starting to take shape, looking good. Our next step involves those of you who have opted in for the eyebrows to actually trim down these edges. So if you haven't gone for the eyebrows, sweet, you've got it easy, you don't have to touch these. But if you have, unfortunately, you have to angle that corner off basically, because the LED strip cuts through there and it hits. So that's our next step. So this is a little hard to see, but basically the top part is nicking onto the back in there. So that's stopping it from closing. We're going to trim that. I'll show you the after end result and we'll go from there. Okay, so now we have Dremel sanded off the top of it. It's not elegant, but it'll do the job. You can see there's the tip, and there too. As I mentioned, it's for that eyebrow to go across there. One thing I've definitely learnt with this whole process is this is not a perfectionist job. Everything requires a bit of give, but we're all learning here, right? And that's part of the fun of it. So the final steps will be to fix up the channel around the edge around here. So you can see it's a bit warped and a bit thick of glue still from when we were taking it apart. So what we'll be doing is get the heat gun. So we're going to heat up that edge, that channel all around there, in two parts. We'll get the 6mm 1/4" chisel and scratch out / claw out the rest of the glue that's in there. And then also I've got these little clamps here to hold around the edges and just sort of pull the edges closer together whilst they're heated up, which will close it and in the end give you a better seal. So once that seal is all prepared, we will insert the wire at the back, so just feed it through the crack and redo up those screws so that the eyebrow can fit through and we can close it up. Then we'll be adding this hot melt adhesive that Bavgruppe have given to me, I purchased. Wish they gave it to me. So it's this sort of black glue similar to the permanent seal stuff that comes in BMW. It's one packet, I think it was only, I don't know, $30 or something like that. But I've been told it will be more than enough to do 2 to 4 headlights. So I'll keep you updated as how we go, but on to the next steps. Okay, so now everything's in place. We've got the glue back into the edge along here. It's all ready to go. Now to put it back in the oven, same as before, 10 to 15 minutes on 110 Celsius to 25 Fahrenheit. So onto it. Okay, so now onto the final step. Once you've taken them out of the oven, it's important to clamp the edges to keep the seal watertight. So my tips here are, it's very sticky when it comes out of the oven, so it's a little tricky to handle, but just push it down and be careful of getting any of the glue. I ended up getting a little bit on top and unfortunately ended up scratching the lens, but we'll fix that up later. Hopefully this is all watertight, but final step is to let them dry and then reattach. So let's check it out. And we are done. So before we get to the cinematic, please make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It's really good motivation to keep these videos going. So without further ado, check it out. So what are your thoughts? Give me a comment below whether you rate it or don't rate it. That was by far one of the most difficult mods that I've done so far, but in my opinion, one of the most rewarding. It makes such a difference to the front of the car. The whole impact of the car sort of resembles that 2 Series M2 competition style, which I'm so happy about. Overall, no regrets. Very difficult, so hopefully this does really help. But if you have any questions, feel free to drop them below. I'll try and reply to everyone, and hopefully this has helped you. So until next time, see ya.